All right, let's talk about George Orwell. When you hear that name, you probably think of Big Brother, right? 1984, Animal Farm, the stuff we all read in school. But what if I told you the novelist we think we know is only half the story? What if the real Orwell was one of the most important political philosophers of the last century?
Yeah. See, this common picture of him, the guy who wrote some scary books about the future, it just doesn't do him justice. It completely misses that he spent his entire life building a powerful, complete philosophical system, a way of seeing the world that's, frankly, more critical right now than ever before.
And that's exactly what we're going to get into here. We're going to move way beyond the high school reading list and dive into the mind of George Orwell, the philosopher. Because his ideas about truth, language, and power aren't separate things. They're all connected. They form this incredible toolkit for making sense of the world we're living in today.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the one idea that was totally non-negotiable for him, the nature of truth. From there, we'll see how that leads straight into his theories on language, his really dark understanding of power, and finally, his own unique vision for what a truly free society could look like.
Okay, so everything in Orwell's philosophy starts right here. Before you can even begin to talk about things like justice or freedom, you have to agree on a basic, shared reality. For Orwell, this was the absolute foundation.
At the heart of it is this idea of objective truth. It's simple, really. It's the belief that the world is out there, existing on its own terms, separate from our feelings or opinions about it. You know, a rock is hard, water is wet. This wasn't just some abstract idea for him. It was the essential glue holding everything together. Science, justice, even democracy. Without it, the whole project of civilization just falls apart.
And this wasn't something he just came up with in a study. This belief was forged in the hellfire of the Spanish Civil War. He was there, on the ground, and he was horrified. He'd see a battle with his own two eyes, and then he'd read a newspaper report describing something that just didn't happen. He saw firsthand how a powerful ideology could make smart people completely blind to the evidence right in front of them, and it absolutely terrified him. He genuinely feared that the very concept of fact was vanishing from the world.
This famous line from 1984 just nails it. It's not about math. Not really. It's a deeply political statement. It means that some things are true whether the government likes it or not. Because if a power structure can make you believe and repeat that 2 + 2 = 5, well, then they own reality itself. And at that point, freedom is well and truly gone.
So, if objective truth is the foundation, then the next layer of his philosophy is language. For Orwell, language wasn't just a communication tool. It was the actual battlefield where the war for truth was won or lost.
And this is his really groundbreaking insight. The words we use don't just put labels on things that already exist. No, they actively build the mental boxes we use to understand the world. The vocabulary you have literally limits or expands the thoughts you're even capable of having.
And he saw this happening everywhere, especially in politics. You don't hear a politician admit to mass murder, they call it ethnic cleansing. It's not torture, it's enhanced interrogation. These euphemisms are weapons. They're designed to sanitize ugly realities, to put an emotional buffer between us and the horrible truth of what's actually going on.
And this leads us to the terrifying conclusion. Newspeak, the fictional language from 1984. It's the ultimate form of this linguistic manipulation. Newspeak controls people not by making rebellious thoughts illegal, but by making them literally unthinkable. I mean, how can you even conceive of rebellion if the words you need, like freedom, justice, or revolution, have been wiped from existence?
But here's the thing. Orwell didn't just point out the disease. He gave us the cure. These simple rules for writing are, for him, a profound political act. He's saying that every time we choose a clear, simple word over a vague, complicated one, every time we refuse to use language to hide the truth, we are striking a blow for freedom. Clear thinking, for Orwell, is where liberty begins.
Okay, so we have our bedrock of truth. We have the battlefield of language. Now let's connect it to the grand prize, power. Orwell had a bleak, but I think incredibly sharp, take on what power is and what it always ultimately wants. And it all starts with a question that really haunted him. You've probably wondered this yourself, right? Why do so many revolutions that start with these amazing, noble goals of freedom and equality, why do they so often end up creating regimes that are just as brutal as the ones they overthrew? Orwell thought he knew why.
And his answer is chilling.
He argued that power isn't just a tool that you can pick up and use for good. It's more like a force of nature, a thing with its own unstoppable logic that changes whoever holds it. It doesn't matter if you're a good person with pure intentions. The moment you get power, the desperate need to keep it forces your hand. You have to crush your rivals, you need propaganda, you need spies. The logic of the system itself just takes over.
Now, after hearing all that, you might think Orwell was just a complete cynic, that he thought we were all doomed. But he wasn't. He actually spent his life trying to map out a practical escape route, a way to build a society that could actually resist this corrupting logic of power.
To get his solution, you have to understand that he was in a really unique and kind of lonely political spot. You could say he was fighting a war on two fronts. He hated totalitarianism, fascism, communism, all of it, because it crushed human freedom. But at the same time, he was a fierce critic of capitalism, which he saw as fundamentally unfair and unequal.
So his answer was what he called democratic socialism. And we have to be super clear. This had nothing to do with the totalitarian nightmare of the Soviet Union. His vision was for a society with public ownership and much more equality, yes, but, and this is the absolute key, it had to be relentlessly democratic. Political freedoms couldn't just be preserved, they had to be expanded, specifically to act as a check against the concentration of power he feared so much.
And this brings us to the absolute core, the punchline of his entire philosophy. For George Orwell, the means always determine the ends. It's that simple. You cannot build a free and decent society using oppressive, indecent methods. It's impossible. If you use secret police and propaganda to seize power, you will end up with a society run by secret police and propaganda, no matter what beautiful ideals you started with.
So when you put it all together, this fierce defense of truth, the war over language, the dangerous logic of power, and the absolute need for democratic means, you finally see the full picture. It's a call for permanent vigilance. Orwell taught us that the great struggle for freedom isn't just something that happens on a battlefield. It happens in every conversation. It's fought one sentence at a time, every time we choose clarity over deception and truth over convenience. Which leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? How are we fighting that battle today?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. When most of us hear George Orwell, we probably think Big Brother, maybe Animal Farm, stuff from high school English.
Yeah, those iconic warnings. And they're powerful, no doubt.
Absolutely. But today, we want to push past that a bit, because he wasn't just a novelist, was he? He was, well, a really profound political thinker.
Oh, completely. One of the most insightful of the 20th century, I'd argue. And his ideas about truth, power, language, gosh, they feel incredibly relevant right now.
And these weren't just abstract thoughts, were they? They came from somewhere very real.
Exactly, not some ivory tower. They were forged in pretty intense, bitter experiences. You know, being a colonial policeman in Burma, seeing empire up close.
Right.
Then living rough, really poor in Paris and London. And then, crucially, fighting in the Spanish Civil War.
Where he saw ideology just run rampant.
Yeah, he saw supposed allies turning on each other, truth being completely twisted, witnessing intellectuals abandon facts for party lines. That fundamentally shaped everything for him.
So, okay, he had these powerful experiences. Did they lead to a kind of coherent philosophy, a system?
I think so, yes. An astonishingly coherent one, actually. He started piecing together these revolutionary ideas about, well, what truth is.
Okay.
And how language isn't neutral, how it shapes thought, the nature of power itself, how it corrupts. And underpinning it all, that fight for individual freedom.
So that's our mission today, to sort of connect those dots.
That's the plan, to show how these threads, truth, language, power, the individual, weave together into this single urgent message.
And crucially for you listening, this isn't just history. Understanding Orwell, his whole system, it gives you tools. Tools to spot manipulation, resist propaganda.
Maybe most importantly, to hang on to your own independent thought in this, well, this often confusing world we're in.
It feels more essential than ever. So where do we start? What's the foundation?
The bedrock, really, was his absolute conviction that objective truth exists. It's real. It's out there, independent of what anyone thinks or feels.
Independent of the party line.
Independent of the party line, independent of popular opinion, everything. And this wasn't some naive idea. It came, as he said, from bitter experience.
Which brings us back to Spain.
Exactly. The Spanish Civil War was key. He was there on the ground fighting fascism, and he was just appalled to see how events he witnessed firsthand.
Like battles, specific incidents.
Yes. Things he saw with his own eyes were being reported back home, internationally in completely distorted ways, denied, minimized, outright fabricated.
Wow.
He saw how ideology could make smart people, intellectuals, just blind to obvious realities. It shook him.
That idea, that objective truth itself could just fade out of the world as he worried. It's terrifying.
It is. Because if truth becomes malleable, if it's just whatever serves your side, what happens then?
Everything falls apart.
That's what he feared. Justice needs facts, science needs agreed upon data, democracy needs reliable information, even just, trusting people. It all rests on truth. He basically said, when truth dies, civilization dies with it.
Which makes that line from 1984 so powerful.
Yeah.
Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 make 4.
Right. It's not just maths. It's the symbol of a basic, objective reality that exists whether the party likes it or not.
And the party's goal is precisely to make you believe 2 + 2 = 5 if they order it. Control reality by controlling the mind.
But Orwell also believed reality, it has a way of pushing back.
How so?
You can declare 2 + 2 be 5, but your bridge built on that faulty math will still collapse. You can deny a battle happened, but the dead bodies are still there. You can claim the economy's great, but people are still hungry. Reality asserts itself.
There's a kind of stubbornness to facts.
Exactly. And there's hope in that.
So how do we, ordinary people, hold on to that? Orwell talked about common sense, didn't he?
He did. He believed ordinary people have this sort of natural ability to see basic truths. Stones are hard, water is wet, Simple observation.
But systems can train that out of you.
Totalitarian systems, absolutely. They deliberately undermine your trust in your own senses, your own memory, make you dependent on the official narrative.
So the takeaway for you listening is what? Trust your gut, trust your eyes.
Pretty much. Trust your own observations, your own experience of reality. No party, no ideology can change fundamental facts. The world is how it is, regardless of spin. That's where real freedom begins. It's actually quite empowering.
It really is. Okay, so if objective truth is the foundation, language is
What?
the battlefield.
That's a great way to put it. Orwell's huge insight was that language doesn't just describe reality, it actively shapes how we perceive it, how we think about it.
To control the language.
And you control thought, you control consciousness itself. It's a revolutionary idea, really.
And he saw this happening. In politics, in movement.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Every authoritarian system starts by messing with words, redefining them, muddying them, making it harder for opponents to even articulate dissent.
How does that work in practice? What kind of techniques did he notice?
Well, one obvious one is euphemisms, softening harsh realities.
Like enhanced interrogation instead of torture.
Exactly. Or ethnic cleansing for mass murder, pacification for bombing villages. It makes the unacceptable sound routine almost bureaucratic. It numbs the moral sense.
Takes the sting out. Okay, what else?
Then there's deliberate vagueness. Politicians love talking in grand, abstract terms, freedom, democracy, justice, without ever defining what they mean.
Why do that?
2 reasons, mainly. 1, it avoids making concrete promises they can be held to. 2, it lets everyone project their own hopes onto the words. You hear freedom and think one thing, someone else hears it and thinks something completely different, but you both feel included.
Ah, clever. So it sounds good, but commits to nothing. And the third one?
Outright redefinition. This is maybe the most insidious, taking familiar words and slowly, steadily changing their meaning to suit a political agenda.
Like how freedom might come to mean obedience to the state.
Precisely. Or peace might mean the silence after crushing all opposition. It happens gradually through repetition until people just accept the new meaning without remembering the old one.
Which leads us straight to Newspeak in 1984. That feels like the ultimate expression of this.
It is. Newspeak is the nightmare scenario. Systematically shrinking the vocabulary, eliminating synonyms, removing nuances.
To make certain thoughts impossible.
Literally unthinkable. If the word doesn't exist, the concept behind it becomes incredibly difficult, maybe impossible to grasp, let alone communicate. Rebellion becomes unthinkable if rebellion isn't a word you possess.
But Orwell wasn't just talking about extreme dictatorships, right?
Yeah.
He saw this creeping into everyday life, too.
Absolutely. He warned that language gets corrupted just by laziness, by intellectual cowardice, by repeating slogans and jargon without thinking. We lose precision, and when we lose precision in language,
We lose precision in thought.
Exactly. We start letting cliches and ready-made phrases do our thinking for us. Our minds get slabby.
So what was his solution? What should we be doing?
His advice was simple but powerful. Be clear. Be precise. Use concrete words over abstract ones, short words over long ones, simple sentences. Cut out the jargon, the cliches, the pretentious waffle.
Honesty in language promotes honesty in thought.
That was his firm belief. It's a direct link.
So for you listening, the message is,
Pay attention to words. Use them carefully, honestly, and demand that from others, especially those in power. Ask for specifics. Ask for definitions. Don't let vague language slide. The fight for freedom, in a way, is fought sentence by sentence.
it's a constant vigilance.
Every single day.
Okay, so we have truth as the bedrock, language is the battlefield.
Yeah.
What about power itself? Orwell had some pretty stark views on that, too.
He really did. And again, it wasn't abstract theorizing. He saw power not just as a tool, something you use, but as a force that changes the person who holds it.
It corrupts, the old cliche.
More than that, it creates its own logic, its own needs. Even if you start with good intentions, the demands of holding on to power start to reshape your goals, your morality.
And the Spanish Civil War, again, seems crucial here.
It was formative. He saw the communists, who were supposed to be allies against fascism, ruthlessly eliminating other left-wing groups. Arrests, torture, murder.
Why? Just paranoia.
He saw it as more systematic than that, a structural requirement, he called it. Once you have dominant power, you instinctively move to crush any potential rivals, even former allies, to maintain that power. The goal shifts from fighting the enemy to preserving your own dominance.
Chilling. Does this mean all power structures inevitably follow the same path, regardless of ideology?
Orwell seemed to think concentrated power leads to similar outcomes, yeah. Whether it starts left or right, you tend to see the same tools emerge. Secret police, propaganda, informants, violence, demands for absolute loyalty. The revolutionaries, he noted, often become prisoners of the institutions they have created.
They get trapped by the logic of power itself.
Exactly. The means corrupt the end.
So if good intentions aren't enough, what's the defense against this? How do we stop power from corrupting?
His answer wasn't about finding better people. It was about better systems. Limiting power, distributing it, building strong institutional safeguards.
Like checks and balances.
Checks and balances, a free press, independent courts, transparency, accountability, structures that make it harder for anyone to accumulate too much unchecked power. It's about the rules of the game, not just trusting the players.
But he also saw how fragile those safeguards are, didn't he?
Deeply fragile, because those in power always have incentives to get around them. They'll argue it's an emergency, they'll say their opponents aren't playing fair, so the rules need to be bent just this once.
And each step sounds reasonable on its own.
Exactly. Each small erosion seems justifiable, but the cumulative effect leads towards authoritarianism. It's a slippery slope, and the slope is greased by those seeking more control.
So again, it comes back to vigilance. For us, the citizens.
Constant vigilance, that's the price. Defending those institutions, questioning emergency powers, remembering that power does corrupt, even people who mean well. It's a burden, but a necessary one.
Which leads us to maybe the deepest level, the individual. Orwell saw the ultimate battleground not out there, but in here.
The few cubic centimeters inside each person's skull. That's where the real fight for freedom happens. Maintaining your own judgment against the pull of the group, the collective.
Why is that pull so strong?
Well, group loyalty feels good, right? Belonging, solidarity, and collective movements, even with noble aims, often demand conformity. You're encouraged, sometimes pressured, to accept the group's view, the leader's line, without question.
And you can lose the habit of thinking for yourself.
Easily. You trade your intellectual independence for the comfort of belonging. It's a dangerous bargain.
This sounds like it connects to doublethink.
Absolutely. Doublethink is the end point of surrendering your mind, holding two contradictory beliefs at the same time and accepting both.
Like believing the party is all-powerful, but also constantly under threat.
Yes. Or believing war is peace. Freedom is slavery. It's the ability to swallow contradictions demanded by the party line without any mental discomfort. And Orwell saw milder versions everywhere, not just in 1984. That human capacity to ignore inconvenient truths.
Choosing comfort over reality.
Pretty much. Reconciling cognitive dissonance by just not thinking too hard about it.
So, if the group can pull us this way, and doublethink is possible, what's the individual shield? Back to common sense again.
Back to common sense. That simple, maybe not so simple, ability to see what's in front of your nose. to observe reality accurately and remember it, trusting your own senses, your own experience.
And being willing to say the emperor has no clothes, even if everyone else is admiring the fine robes.
Precisely. It means trusting your perception, even when it's unpopular or uncomfortable, and crucially, being willing to change your mind if the facts change. That's intellectual honesty.
Okay, now let's pivot slightly. Orwell was incredibly prescient about technology, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Especially surveillance.
Astonishingly so. He understood technology isn't neutral. It can be used to liberate or it can be used to control, and he feared the control aspect.
The telescreen in 1984 is the obvious example.
It's the perfect metaphor, isn't it? Entertainment and surveillance rolled into one, always on, always watching, always listening. It blurred the line between public and private completely.
And he saw that coming, that level of intrusion.
He anticipated that such capabilities would become normalized, routine, what seemed like dystopian fantasy then. Well, look around now.
And this surveillance, this erosion of privacy, it doesn't usually happen overnight, does it?
Never. It's always incremental, each step justified by convenience or security.
It's just to make things easier. It's just for your safety.
Exactly. We accept small intrusions, small trade-offs. But the cumulative effect is huge. It leads to self-censorship. You start watching what you say, what you search for, even what you think, because you internalize the possibility of being watched.
That's a terrifying form of control. Internalized.
The most effective kind.
But you said technology isn't neutral. It can also empower.
Oh, absolutely. Think of the internet, access to information, the ability to connect and organize. Technology can be a massive force for freedom and knowledge.
So what makes the difference?
It depends on who controls it and within what kind of political and economic system it operates. Is it used to empower citizens or monitor them? Is it democratically accountable? Those are the key questions.
So bringing this all together for you, listening right now, what's the core message about protecting your own mind in this technological age?
It comes back to that individual responsibility. Be willing to trust what you see and hear. Question the narratives you're fed, especially the popular ones. Make the effort to think for yourself rather than accepting the thoughts of others.
It's not easy.
It's definitely not easy. It can be lonely. But that intellectual independence, that willingness to see reality clearly, that's ultimately the only real defense against manipulation in any age. You have to own your own mind.
So when we step back and look at Orwell's whole picture, this fierce commitment to objective truth, the power of language, the corrupting nature of power itself, and this defense of the individual mind, it really does form a unified philosophy, doesn't it?
It really does, and it feels more relevant than ever. The specific threats change, new technologies, different kinds of propaganda, economic pressures.
But the underlying dangers are the same.
Exactly the same dangers Orwell warned us about. His work isn't just a historical document, it's a toolkit for understanding the present, for pushing back against those forces that want to control how we think and what we believe.
And maybe that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This whole struggle, freedom versus tyranny, it isn't just something that happens in history books or faraway countries.
No, it's renewed every day by every one of us.
The future isn't predetermined. It depends on our choices right now. Do we choose to think for ourselves? Do we choose to speak truthfully, even when it's hard?
Do we stand up for principles? Do we resist the easy comfort of convenient lies? That, Orwell suggests, is the constant challenge. It's